You're about to hear something that's never made headlines before. A signal from the depths of space that simply disappeared from public conversation, as if it never existed. And yet, it exists. It's been detected. And according to sources who wish to remain anonymous, it shouldn't have been revealed. Not yet. Amid the cosmic silence, the Voyager 1 spacecraft, launched more than 40 years ago and now farther from Earth than any human-made object, sent back something experts are calling anomalous, an unusual signal with frequencies that didn't match any previous readings. It wasn't just different, it was deliberate. And most disturbing of all, it wasn't long before the signal was erased from NASA's public servers. What's going on? Why would the world's largest space agency erase or censor a transmission from Voyager 1? What was it about this data that required absolute silence? The answer lies between the lines of hidden reports and in the fragmented statements of engineers who cannot speak openly. This is no ordinary sound. It is a possible code, a sequence that cryptography experts have classified as non-random. In other words, intelligence. And if this is true, if this is indeed an attempt at intelligent communication, we are looking at the greatest evidence yet that we are not alone. But why hide it? Why keep this event a secret? Could this signal be a confirmation of contact? A callback to the message we sent decades ago, with information about our location, our biology, our humanity? Or could it be a warning, a wake-up call from something that has finally noticed us out there? Many believe that NASA, pressured by forces that don't appear in the news, chose to keep this secret. Confidential documents, closed-door meetings, and technical updates that mysteriously disappeared from official platforms fuel a growing suspicion. They are hiding the truth. And it all started with this signal. There's something about this transmission pattern that defies logic. A rhythm, a repetition that resembles some kind of advanced binary code, something our best scientists can't yet fully decipher, but which, according to leaks, has caused an immediate reaction from global security agencies. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's in the hidden logs, the silent forums, the interrupted conversations. And if you still think this is just a technical error, wait until you see what we reveal next. Because what Voyager 1 sent back may be just the beginning. Voyager 1 is not just a spacecraft. It is a symbol, an interstellar artifact carrying Earth's secrets, floating in absolute vacuum for more than 4 decades. Launched in 1977, its mission was simple, at least on paper, to study the giant planets of our solar system. But what began as documented science has now become something that borders on the inexplicable. And that is exactly why, in 2025, Voyager 1 returned to the center of a hidden, disturbing, and perhaps deliberately censored mystery. More than 24 billion kilometers away from Earth, this probe is in a territory where no other human technology has ever reached. It is the most distant object ever created by man, sailing towards the unknown beyond the heliosphere, where the solar wind ceases to exist and space becomes pure silence. A silence that has recently been interrupted. But the most disturbing thing was not the signal itself. It was the behavior of those who received it. And if you stop to think, why so much secrecy surrounding a simple transmission? Why such vague, quick, and rehearsed answers? There is something about this probe that we have not yet been told, something that goes far beyond the original mission, because within its structure, Voyager 1 carries not only scientific equipment, but also a time capsule, the famous Golden Record, a record of our existence with sounds from Earth, greetings in several languages, star maps, and even human heartbeats, a bold attempt at contact, a call to the cosmos. Now imagine, what if someone answered? And that's exactly what made Voyager 1's last contact so disturbing. Because what it transmitted wasn't just a routine status signal or reading. It was something that scientists, to this day, have struggled to explain clearly. The last data packet sent by the probe contained a completely unusual frequency. An unusual noise, yes, but with something else. Experts who were able to access the fragments before they were archived or, as some claim, intentionally hidden, describe a sequence that seemed coded. There were rhythmic pauses, specific variations, unusual repetitions, and, most frighteningly, a structure that resembled organized binary patterns. This wasn't a technical error. This wasn't random noise. This was something that seemed constructed, deliberate, something that seemed purposeful. The reaction from scientists was immediate but strangely restrained. Some, within NASA itself, expressed discomfort in discussing the matter. Others simply refused to talk, and soon after, access to the data was restricted. Why? What is it about this signal that cannot be publicly discussed? Leaked. Information indicates that its contents could represent a response, yes, a response, to the golden record. But this response, instead of being widely celebrated, was treated with extreme silence, as if what was detected was dangerous, or worse, forbidden. And now the question that hangs in the air is, who or what is trying to answer us after more than 40 years in the absolute darkness of the cosmos? And then, as if the universe had held its breath, silence came. A silence so profound, so absolute, that not even the routine signals that Voyager 1 used to send were detected. It simply stopped. There was no more response, no more echo. The probe, that for decades had never failed to maintain contact with Earth, now fell silent in an inexplicable way. It was as if, after the strange signal was transmitted, something or someone had directly interfered with its communication, and this sudden silence did not go unnoticed. Inside the monitoring rooms, engineers and scientists began reporting anomalous failures, signal drops not explained by natural factors. And, curiously, along with the communication failure came NASA's explanations. But they were not convincing. They were vague, subtle, full of contradictions. First, they said it was an internal error in the probe's old systems. Then, they mentioned interference from cosmic radiation. And then, in a third statement, they stated that everything was already being resolved. But the truth is that no one has actually seen this corrected data. No one outside the inner circles has had access to what was supposedly restored. Everything has been treated with a level of secrecy that usually only appears in situations where there is much more than a simple technical glitch. And that's when the questions start to intensify. Because what could be so compromising as to justify this sudden disappearance of signals? What could have silenced Voyager 1 so abruptly, right after transmitting something so out of the ordinary? With Voyager 1's inexplicable silence, theories have begun to emerge from the shadows, and they're not just from conspiracy theorists. Independent astronomers, space signal experts, and former NASA employees have begun to raise hypotheses that the agency has refused to comment on publicly. And one of the most disturbing is that this silence was not caused by a technical failure, nor by natural conditions in deep space. Many believe that there was unnatural interference, a deliberate jamming, as if something or someone had intercepted the probe's transmission, as if the communication channel had been taken over. When analyzing the public data still available, some scholars noticed something unusual. The last packets received had specific patterns, almost as if they were encrypted messages. Millimeter-long pauses, mathematically precise repetitions, modulations that resemble ancient digital coding systems. It wasn't noise, it wasn't randomness, it was a structure, and this raises a question that even the most skeptical are beginning to consider. Was this a real attempt at communication? Could we be witnessing, without knowing it, the first real contact? Not from a shiny ship in the sky, but from a cold, silent, incredibly intelligent code from the depths of the cosmos? The disturbing thing is that the more we talk about this outside of major institutions, the harder it seems to get. New information. Some publications have been taken down, independent reports have been archived. Data that was once accessible is now restricted, as if someone were, in effect, trying to control the narrative before it gets out of hand. And the most surprising thing is that, when crossing the data from the last signal from Voyager 1 with historical records of enigmatic transmissions from space, the similarities are disturbing. One of the most emblematic cases is the famous WOW signal, detected in 1977, curiously the same year that Voyager was launched. In that episode, a radio telescope captured a powerful and unusual transmission, with a duration and intensity that have never been satisfactorily explained. The signal seemed artificial, but it disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. Decades later, it still echoes as one of the greatest mysteries of modern astrophysics. Now, with what was received from Voyager, many independent scientists have begun to compare the patterns. And what they have found is disturbing. The modulation, the repetition structure, and even the duration show points of convergence with the WOW signal. This is not a mere coincidence. We are faced with a possible communication pattern. A format that may be being used by an intelligence that understands our technological limitations and is, little by little, trying to make itself understood. But why now? Why, after so many years of silence, are these signals emerging again? Some researchers suggest that Voyager 1, having passed through the heliosphere, entered a contact zone, a region where forces or consciousnesses that were previously hidden can now reach us. Others believe that the response took decades to reach us because of the absurd distance between civilizations. But there is also a third hypothesis, darker and less discussed. What if this is not the first signal, but rather the beginning of a new phase? A stage where communication is no longer tentative, but rather the prelude to something much bigger and more concrete. And this is where things start to get even more nebulous, because we are no longer talking about just a strange signal or cosmic coincidences. We are talking about concrete facts being omitted from official communications, information taken from technical reports, contradictions between public statements and what some scientists claim to have seen with their own eyes. There are reports, unconfirmed but also never denied, of researchers being removed without plausible explanations, shortly after questioning the authenticity of the data released by NASA. People who worked directly on monitoring Voyager 1 simply disappeared from the project, their names removed from the bulletins, their publications archived or summarily invalidated. And it doesn't stop there. There are different versions of the same signal circulating among independent scientific groups, files that show minimal but significant variations in the binary patterns of the last contact. This raises a frightening question. Has the data been altered? Is someone manipulating the truth before it reaches the public? And if so, why? What is so compromising about this transmission that it requires this level of control? The answer, some suggest, and few dare to say out loud, is that they are afraid. But it is not fear of making mistakes. It is fear of something much bigger, fear of something that might be watching us, something that might have responded, something that now knows exactly where we are, fear of someone. And that's exactly where everything takes on an even deeper dimension, not just scientific, but existential. Because when we ask ourselves if we're not alone, we rarely consider the possibility that the silence of the universe may never have been truly silent. What if, in fact, they've been trying to talk to us for decades, but we've just never been able to listen? Voyager 1 carries with it a gift from humanity to the unknown, the golden record, an artifact with information about who we are, how we live, what we feel, what we dream. A message of good intentions, sent with hope, but also with the naivety of those who thought the universe would be silent. What few realize is that this gesture, as noble as it may seem, was also a total exposure of our existence. A detailed star map, sounds of Earth, greetings in several languages, and even images of human anatomy. All of this is there, floating now in interstellar space. What if someone found this capsule of knowledge? What if someone, after analyzing each element sent, decided to respond? A response that may not come in comprehensible phrases or sounds, but in codes, in patterns, in signs. Something that demands of us a level of perception that we may still be developing. Because if there really is an intelligence trying to communicate, and if this attempt has been going on for a long time, then the biggest question is not whether we are ready to listen, but whether we are already listening, and we just don't understand it yet. Something inside us knows that this goes beyond science, beyond technology. It goes right to the heart of what it means to be human. What if all Voyager 1 received was not just a response, but an instruction, a kind of calculated feedback, where that mysterious signal carried something much deeper than simple communication? Because when we observe the fragments still available from the transmission, there are signs of a structure that resembles location, coordinates, sequences that do not fit into random codes, but rather into possible points in space, trajectories, vectors. Could it be possible that this signal is, in fact, a map? A route to some place that we still cannot understand? Or perhaps a warning? A warning coming from an intelligence that observed our message and decided to respond to us in a symbolic but urgent way. What if that unusual frequency is, in fact, a wake-up call? Something that tells us you are entering unknown territory and you are not alone there. But there is still a third possibility, the boldest, the most frightening, and at the same time, the most fascinating. What if what Voyager 1 captured is an invitation? A call from a distant consciousness that saw in our gesture an opportunity for connection. Something that says, "We saw you. We heard you. Now we want you to come here." That would change everything. It would mean that not only have we been noticed, but that now we are expected. And now the question that echoes at the heart of it all is inevitable. What did Voyager 1 really find? A random code? A glitch? Or an intelligent signal from something or someone far beyond our current understanding? Because if what we have received is indeed a coordinate, a warning, or even an invitation, we are about to cross a boundary that humanity has never crossed before. A boundary that could rewrite what we know about our place in the universe. And maybe, just maybe, the truth is not out there waiting to be discovered, but has already found us. If you've made it this far, comment now, "I want to know the truth." This is a sign that you are also looking for what has been hidden, censored, and finally revealed. Take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, and leave your like. This helps us bring you even more content like this. And don't stop here. The next video is already on the screen, and in it you will discover the secret signals that the James Webb Telescope captured and that, until today, have been ignored by the headlines. What science discovered, perhaps history tried to hide.